Hello and blessings, beautiful souls. Sarava, and I share to you. How are you today? So I think it is safe to say that, excuse me, I think it's safe to say that the structure for live streams on YouTube has changed drastically because I had set an event and yet I could not in any way, shape or form access the event that I set unless I did it off my phone. And from somebody who has had experience live streaming off their phone, I know that the level of control that you have over those live streams is severely restricted. So I never get to see comments when I'm streaming off my phone. They just appear and disappear as quickly as they appear in other words. So I'll give it a little while for people to hop on, join in, do all that kind of fun stuff. Sorry about the glare. I was trying to is that a little bit better? I've got such weird light sources. It's quite dark today, despite the fact that it's not terribly overcast, but it creates an issue. And anybody sort of knows that cameras, low light performance, a webcam, low light performance, it's just not a great thing. So I'm in my father's converted shipping container / tiny home, and so I'm surrounded by man things. He's grey nomading at the moment, so he has gone up north for a period of about 4 or 5 months, so I won't be seeing him for some time, but I do get to use his little space here as like a second office because my little cottage is right next door, so I don't have to hike up any hills or anything like that. So who have we got here? Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Beth. Hi, Solaria. Hi, Laurie. Hi, Roxanne. Wilder Woman. Hello. Matthew. Hi. Jade. Hi. Labradorite Wolf. Hello. Liana. Hello. And Crystal Moon. Hello. How are you all today? It's such a beautiful day. It's the 1st of May. Hi, Ren Wild. How are you going? So today here in this beautiful part of the world is, well, what can I say? It's the 1st of May. That is a traditional time for Samhain Beltane. Samhain in the Southern Hemisphere this year falls exactly on the 6th at somewhere in the vicinity of about 4 o'clock in the morning. That's the exact time of the cross quarter. And so we celebrate the traditional day, so blessed Samhain and blessed Beltane to you all. And then we move into really embracing ritual on the exact day. At least that's how I like to work. I mean, some people just go for it on the traditional day, and why not, really? The traditional day is a day that you can count on. You know that day. If Christmas, for instance, which is one of the most popular religious holidays celebrated worldwide, shifted every so often to coincide with the exact time of birth, etc., then it would get a little bit confusing. So I understand why people go towards the traditional day, but I am a stickler for detail. And so I always like to look up the exact time and day and get as close to that as possible. And I have been known to stay awake or get up early just to get to that exact time of the cross quarter because I'm sensitive and I can feel it, and it's a powerful time. So, hello from Brazil. Hi, Mariana. Hola, ¿cómo va você? Matthew Hut, Spitfire Cat. Hi. From New Mexico. How awesome. Thanks for being here, Matthew. And happy Samhain. Yay. Champagne. Crystal Moon. I'm hoping to be in Tassie by then. Definitely you. It will be fun. Yay, that's so exciting. All right, folks. So today is a live Q&A. So if you have questions for me, if I could ask you to do one thing, and that is put that caps lock on and type them in capital letters so I can differentiate comment from question. That just makes things a lot easier, and it also ensures that I will not miss out on your questions. And if no one feels like posing a question, then someone may also suggest a topic of conversation for today. There's many conversations at the moment floating around the YouTube sphere, especially within the pagan witchcraft community. such things as the Becky mean, such things as gatekeeping, and such things as always is the case. It's all about the chatter between what is a witch, what isn't a witch, why are people disapproving of witchcraft, and so on and so forth. And I've got many opinions on this subject, not all of which are popular, and some of which are quite refreshingly new. So if anyone wants to ask questions, let's go for it. Oh, can you do more farm vlogs, please? I absolutely can. Yes. See, something happened this week that I haven't mentioned on camera, and that is that for the last almost year, some might say, we have been doing uploading content to a Patreon tier called the Apple Tree. And the Apple Tree was designed to be a space where I get to share my life off-gridding and zero wasting, minimalizing, and share my kids and my husband and my home life. However, after long consultations and discussions with my husband, he expressed a desire to create his own YouTube channel in the future. And so we decided to pull down the Apple Tree and leave that as a theme for him to then create his channel around. So hopefully, if I can sort of nudge him, he's not shy, he's just quiet and slow moving. So I want to nudge him to make some beautiful like farm vlogs, homesteading videos, because we have a lot of projects on the go here. We are building a house. We are bringing in machinery to level out garden bed sections, building chicken coops, and just doing so much. It's absolutely such a busy time for us here. And we have every day been cutting through our 28 acres of forest and trying to find animal trails that we can then expand to be walking trails, because we have such beautiful wilderness here. And it'd be nice if the kids can go for a wander through the wilderness, knowing that they're still in their backyard, essentially. So great stuff. All right. Oh, Labradorite Wolf. If one wishes to live in Oz, where is the most affordable? Queensland, maybe. Look, there are many places that are starting to really peak in affordability, and it's up and down. I know that West Australia for the longest time has been considered one of the most expensive places to live, and then that shifted on to Sydney, Melbourne. The outskirts of Melbourne is a really popular place to reside, and Melbourne has a really high concentration of witches and pagans and magicians and occultists. For some reason, it's just a beautiful hub. Tasmania is the cheapest place to live. However, there is a housing crisis in Tasmania, and so unless you want to live in one of these tiny little towns, of which I live in, then and you want to really flock to the cities or suburban areas nearer to the city, then you're going to find some difficulties. I've heard of many people having difficulty finding rentals, and they've gone as far as the Huon Valley, which is where I live. I live in the Huon Valley. And there's so many little country towns in the Huon Valley. But if you can find a place, Tasmania is actually the cheapest place. It's cheaper to register a vehicle. It's cheaper rent. It's cheaper. It's just cheap. And so there's that question for you. Jennifer asks, if you could pinpoint your most favorite ritual routine you perform every day, what would it be? My favorite ritual or routine to perform every day, it would actually be waking up my sacred space and doing a reading for myself, just a little card or a little something. I like my rituals to be as meaningful as they are simple. There is a time and place for convoluted ritual, and that is something that I believe. And when you can, in fact, do those types of convoluted, well thought out uber rituals, you walk away from that experience really believing in magic, believing in the magic that's in yourself, and feeling super recharged. But the simple ritual keeps me coming back for more. So I go up to my witch's cottage and I light my candles and I sit there and I speak to my ancestors and I pull a card, whatever deck I've got on the table. I don't like to overthink it. It needs to be natural. It needs to be simple. I have my Palo Santo going. I might burn a bit of bay for wisdom. I might burn a bit of, sage just to clear up the space a little bit. I might refresh the flowers on some of the offerings that I have and anoint my statuary, and just really sort of, it's such a natural thing. And I just wake up and I just know exactly what to do. I'm like, yep, that needs a this, that needs a that. And it actually doesn't take me beyond 10 minutes. In some cases, it can actually take me just 5 minutes to do. But I walk away from that experience feeling really centered, and it puts the witchcraft in my day. I know that may sound a bit odd, but it's one thing to be a witch. It's another thing to practice witchcraft. And practicing witchcraft each and every day really connects you to the archetype of witch that's within. And so I like to do a daily practice. And there are times when my daily practice doesn't evolve as I want it to in the mornings, and I have to do it in the afternoon. I don't like to restrict myself to time of day. As long as I get it done in the day, that's the best for me. Okay. Oh, I hope that answers your question, Jennifer. Is there anything you miss about living in Cairns? Yes, I miss Cairns in the way that I had like a coven up there, and I miss my beautiful friends so much. I don't miss the weather, but I miss the nature. The rainforest up there, absolutely stunning, absolutely stunning. River systems, absolutely beautiful. Waterfalls are plenty, absolutely beautiful. It is replete with natural beauty, and that is something that I miss. And I miss my friends, of course, but I don't miss the weather at all. I just don't miss that sweltering heat. I don't miss the mosquitoes. I don't miss the flies. I just don't miss that aggravating, smothering heat and humidity. So that's definitely what I miss. Like, I miss the good stuff. Okay. Champagne. How can someone know if they have found their familiar? It is all in the feeling. It's in the feeling and in the experience. Now, a familiar, this is one of those types of topics that is divided in their views. So there is the old school view of familiar and the neo-pagan view of the familiar. The neo-pagan view of the familiar is an animal. Oftentimes people take things like cats as their familiar, but they're not the only animal that could be considered a familiar. Traditional practices that fall outside of the neo-pagan umbrella, a familiar is actually a spirit. It is not embodied. And a familiar is something that appears to you in a spirit form. And some manage to capture a spirit into a fetish, and the object with the spirit within that object can be viewed as a familiar as well. So there is a dual-sided view of what is a familiar. If you work with the spirit form of the familiar, which is where I lean into, I work with spirit, so I work with spirit familiars, then the experience is different, and you have interactions with your familiar. But likewise, you also have interactions with your animal familiars, for instance. And you can find that familiar by actively calling it to you. You can call a familiar into your life. That is something that you as a witch have control over. I've got an itchy nose. I do apologize. And if you feel confident and comfortable to do that, then I highly recommend you do that. A good time to do that would be during the new moon. We have one coming up. In fact, it'll be a new moon in Taurus. And where are we? It's probably today. I don't think it is. New moon. Let's say it's roughly on the 5th of May. And that would be a great time to put it out there. But your familiar, if it comes in animal format, they will behave differently. My sister has a familiar that is attached to her pombagira. And what that means is my sister's a spiritist in the Umbanda tradition, and she actually experiences spirit possession. And one of the spirits that possess her is an Eshu, specifically a Pombagira. And her Pombagira bought a cat in her life because her Pombagira likes to work with cats as otherworldly creatures. And so my sister has a cat that belongs to her Pombagira, which gets even more convoluted, doesn't it? So yeah, it's all in the feeling. It's not just an animal that you have, it's an animal that you have that contributes to your practice, that brings the wonder, that brings the whimsy, that brings the magic. It's things that they do and the way that they behave that make you know that they are otherworldly. And that is exactly what a familiar is. It's an otherworldly helper for the witch. Ah. What else have we got here? Have you found any good witchy shops in Tassie? I have. Hang on, I've gone over. I've gone over. Where was I up to? Sorry about this, guys. It just shifted really quickly. Oh, okay. I found my place. Alrighty. My internet is wonky. I know that, razzle dazzle. I know that feeling. Okay, Persephone has said, can you say more about it's one thing to be a witch, another to practice witchcraft? Yes, I can. I can say that. There is, at this moment, a changing landscape in the matter of witchcraft, and the word witch is being commandeered by people who are not practitioners of the craft. And that's not my judgment, but I took a photo of this because it was relevant. I went into the bookstore the other day and I took a photo of this because I was like, oh, this is unique. This is like a totally different thing that I've never seen before. Here we go. Sam George Allen. That was the book by Sam George Allen, and it's titled Witches, What Women Do Together. So it literally had nothing to do with witchcraft, not a thing, not spirituality, not practical sort of things, but they were still calling themselves witches. And so there is a difference between, a person who identifies as a witch, who might call themselves a witch, and the person who calls themselves a witch and practices the art of witchcraft. And so witchcraft has always been, this is not my own terms, this is not my own definition, it is a verb, it's a craft. The word is there. The word is actually in the title, in the label, witchcraft. So it suggests the doing of something. It suggests the verb, the action, the doing word, if you will. And for me, and this is the view that I've had about witchcraft for the longest time, witchcraft is something that you do. It's something that you practice, which is why so many witches talk about their practice, my practice, because they are practicing witchcraft. Whereas there is witchcraft in the form of the aesthetic, there's the witchcraft in the form of the practice, there's the witchcraft in the form of the feminist movement now, and they all go under the banner of witches. However, there is a niche within that banner of witches that are practitioners of witchcraft, and that is what I mean. Did you guys like that, by the way? That photo, like, that blew my mind. Like, I was like, what is this? And it didn't surprise me because I looked up, occasionally I type in witchcraft and witchcraft documentaries, and I came across a Broadly thing, and it was talking about this women's movement. It was just a women's movement. They were artists, they did their thing, but there was no talk of ritual, there was no talk of magic, there was no talk of occult, there was no talk of spirits. It was more an industry thing. And a supporting community thing at the same time. Crystal Moon, have you found any good witchy shops in Tassie? Yes, I have. I have found some good witchy shops. I have found the Page and Cup, which is in the CBD, and I also found the Wishing Well. Both of those beautiful shops are in the CBD of Hobart, and they catered to a different type of witch. So Oh my God, I've got indigestion. And so the wishing well's absolutely beautiful. I've been in there twice now. I actually filmed yesterday's vlog inside the wishing well, and I got to talk to the staff at the wishing well. So that vlog will hopefully be up, in the next day. And the Page and Cup is owned by the beautiful Lynn, and I'm hoping to get her in a video. I've already spoken to her about it. It's just a matter of me getting to her and arranging that. But yeah, they've got such beautiful spaces and they go for such different things. Lynn has a really wide selection of occult books, and that's something that I like. She's got everything from traditional witchcraft to standard witchcraft to herbalism to shamanism, and just a really great selection. She also does secondhand books there as well. She has some great prices on her Nimbin candles, which are my favorite because they are non-toxic. So you can, buy them in bundles. And she's just got a bunch of different little curious things, like these little vials with like little animal bones inside. Alrighty. Hi, Jenny Love Tarot. How are you? Sunshine Dawn. I think I missed most of it. I wasn't coming up on my regular YouTube channel. How long has it been going, guys? It's only been going for 20 minutes now. Have you found any good witchy shops? I've read that out. Yes, cats in particular. Yep. There's actually one of my favorite movies is Constantine with my beautiful Keanu Reeves, and he talks of cats being creatures of the other world, one foot in this world and one foot in that. That's actually not made up just for the movie. The Egyptians had that same type of view, a similar view. I won't say the same because that's generalizing, but a very similar view on that. And spiritists in different parts of the world revere cats for that exact reason. Now, across the world, you're going to have people who revere cats. You're also going to have people who don't give a fuck about cats and eat them. So it really depends on what kind of view you are going to have. But cats are considered to be quite special. And growing up in a household where there were multiple cats amongst other creatures, I can tell you that cats really react to spirit energy. And that's always been one of the most exciting things about cats. Okay, Lee. Oh, where are you? Good Lord, why did it do that? Okay, here we go. Liana. Your feelings and connections with animism. I love this subject and I'm so drawn myself. Okay, as an animist, I think that animism could almost be its own religion, and some people actually do believe that it is a religious view of some description, a spirituality of some description. But I genuinely believe that everything has a life force, absolutely everything. Everything has a life force, and as such, can be manipulated in good or bad ways and utilized. And when I think of one of the things that I really wanted when I was still living in the burbs, in all the places that I've lived in the burbs, is I craved space around me, space where there was nothing but nature, because the vibration and the spirit of nature has a different impact on me than if I'm staying in a concrete building next to other concrete buildings, divided by fence lines, like placed in front of like solid bitumen roads. Like that closes my spirit up. Like it really creates a sense of depletion and frustration. And for the longest time, I never really thought that living off grid in a really beautiful patch of the world was going to be too much of a possibility. So I made the best of my situation. But then opportunities came my way as a result of, many different decisions that I've made in my life. And I was able to live here. And I can say now that I've been here, I'm coming up to, this is my first autumn. I got here a couple of days before the winter solstice. So we're May now. So I'm almost here a year, in fact. And I can honestly say that when I walk through the forest around here, it has an impact on my spirit. And I know that many people talk about going out in nature, and nature is very recharging. But here, where I choose to set my roots, I can meet the spirits of place here. I can talk to the spirits that are in the trees. I can talk to the spirits that are in the plants. I can just speak to the wildlife that is around me, and it's so much wild nature that it has an impact on me, as opposed to having well manicured, structured, tame type of nature. Wild nature actually opens up your heart space, makes you more creative, makes you healthier as a person, because you get to breathe all of this fresh air in. You get to move around in places that are non-polluted, and you don't have to like butt up against other people as you're doing this. I don't hear the sound of my neighbors. And so I get to experience my animistic worldview here in such a different way. And like Gordon comes over here to do ritual because I've got such a big, beautiful, wild space. And you get to really get intimate with the plants and the animals. And honestly, animism to me is just a common sense thing. The animistic worldview, the view that there is more life here than meets the eye, the view that we're not the smartest people in the world, that plants themselves, the tree structures, the root systems are actually far more complex than we may believe. It is humbling to the person, and it chips away at your ego, because human beings can get around life thinking that they are the most powerful, the makers, the creators, the inventors. And yet there have been complex living organisms here on this planet for millions of years. They were here before human beings, and they will probably be here well after. So who really is the most advanced life form or spirit form? I'd like to think that nature has a lot more to offer than we give nature credit for. And I think that there is a spirit in nature that can lead us to knowledge if we are prepared to listen to it. That's my animistic view in a bit of a nutshell. Labradorite Wolf. What would be your best advice for someone planning to live in Australia? My best advice. My best advice. Australia's pretty easy to live in. I would definitely look into healthcare, what's expected of you, and also welfare systems, what is expected of you in that way. Even though you might not necessarily use one or the other all that much, it still pays to know these systems, because in every country those systems are different. It also pays to learn about such things as tenancy agreements and things like that, because Australia has a different tenancy agreement than other countries. And I have these conversations with my American friends where they are allowed to do a lot more in their rentals than we are allowed to do in our rentals here. It's a high cost of living, so you need to learn how to save. Superannuation is a big thing. If you're going to work, you need to put money away for superannuation for your retirement. There's a bunch of different things, but most of them, they're adulting types of things. Everything witchcraft related and or spiritual related or community related, it's more common sense. It's really the adulting aspects that can be quite convoluted if you're not used to it. So that's probably my best advice there. Champagne, C. Are birthmarks an association in any way to know as being a witch? The mark of the witch is, it's got a history to that. In fact, if you'd like to learn more about that subject, I can recommend to you a friend of mine who is an author and a traditional hereditary witch. So I'm a traditional hereditary witch, but my tradition is just that. I come from a tradition. But his tradition is of the cunning British persuasion, and he writes books. He has 2 books. One is very new. It's only just come out, and I tried to bug Gordon for a copy, but he only has PDFs. So I'm going to get one directly from him. His name is Lee Morgan, and his first book was A Deed Without a Name. Now, Lee is an incredibly intelligent individual, and he has a very, very strict view on witchcraft. In fact, he has a very traditional view on witchcraft. Many people who are of traditions per se have very strict view of what is and what is not a witch. And some of those views will inadvertently rub people up the wrong way. The Western view of witchcraft, for instance, is excessive. The West is excessive. It's all about exponential growth. Outside of Western culture, in traditional parts of the world, in what would you call it, in third world countries, or in just smaller niches and countries that, sit outside of that materialistic boom type of space, their view on witchcraft is different. I can say this as someone who's traveled. I can say this as someone who comes from a third world country, someone who speaks multiple languages. I can say this from a view of someone who has experienced those views, cross-culturally speaking. I'm not an expert in those views, but I can say that. And I can tell you that there are views on the witch's mark, but there is also the view on being marked to be a witch. There's the witch's mark, and there is to be marked as a witch. Now, in some of those views, again, that's that dual-sided view. In some instances, the birthmark, the third nipple, the mole on a particular part of the body, that would be considered a witch's mark. Whereas to be marked as a witch is something totally different. It's like you've been touched. You've been touched by the hand of the devil, if you will. You've been touched. And I talk about the devil in the form of the booker, for instance, not the Christian devil. So you've been touched by the devil. You're an otherworldly creature. The moment they touched you, you're an otherworldly creature. You see things differently. You move differently. You operate differently. You don't have a choice. Like a person who has the mark of the witch, or who has been marked for witchcraft, they don't have a choice on whether or not they want to be a witch. They simply are, and as such is. So two different views, very, very convoluted on both sides, I guess you could say. But if you can scratch the surface of some of the hearsay, you're going to get some definitive answers. The moment you step outside of neo-pagan witchcraft, there are harder lines. There are boundaries. There are rules, regulations, harder lines. When I say rules and regulations, they're just defining points. It's not necessarily a how-to bind a person into a particular behavior, but it's more a defining line. Oh, excuse me. Okay. Me and my wife's anniversary is the 4th of May. That's so nice. Happy anniversary, Matthew. Champagne. Can gifts, etc., be passed down hereditarily, passed from loved ones? Gifts are oftentimes passed down through blood, and that alone doesn't ensure that you have a gift. A gift can sometimes be dormant in the system. This is my own personal perspective. They can be dormant in the system, and doing certain works, doing spiritual practices of some description can help to activate that. And that is why when I began my Patreon coven, I talk about helping you to remember the innate magical power that's inside your blood. And so by doing practical witchcraft per se, it can awaken some of the more dormant, passed down psychic gifts. Not every gift is going to be passed down. Some gifts will be passed down the feminine line, some the masculine line, and some will skip generations, but there will be the presence of that gift somewhere in the family tree. And this is why genealogy is a big, big, big fascination for witches, because we all want to know where we come from. We all love the origin story of witchcraft. We all want to know that there was a witch in our lineage. We want to know that there was psychic powers and great stories and legends and myths, and it's a beautiful thing, and it's human desire that leads us down that path. And we oftentimes venerate, our ancestors for that exact reason. But at the end of the day, your psychic gifts are just as likely to awaken within you as the first inheritor of that gift, for instance, if you do the work in this current lifetime. So it doesn't have to be passed on. It's not like the only way that you can have a psychic gift if it was a thing of origin somewhere in your bloodline. You can actually live a type of life, making certain decisions and practicing certain things, and that can awaken a different type of gift. Psychic gifts, other senses, your clairs, if you will. I've done a video on the clairs. If you want to look at it, it's there somewhere in my witch vlogs. They are present within each and every one of us, and it's the type of work that we do and the type of life that we choose to live that helps to really awaken and exercise those psychic gifts. And so while I believe that they can be passed down, I don't think that that's the only way that it can happen. There are many other ways in which you can awaken that psychic gift within you. Psychic gifts, however, that are passed down through the bloodline link you to ancestors. And just like when we're practicing a sort of green witchcraft, we draw power from the earth rather than using our own personal power. We draw power from the earth. When we're working with inherited psychic gifts, we draw power from the spirit of the ancestor whom gifted us with that psychic gift. And so it can get a little bit tricky there as well. Rightio. Joseph Martin, what is the purpose of a crystal grid and how can one start? Okay, I love crystal grids. I really do. And I'm covering Earth at the moment within my Witch Weaver Coven on Patreon. So we're going to look right now. I've got a specialist friend of mine, someone who has just the most incredible knowledge on crystals. I have her writing out something really unique because she is a specialist in the field. And we are going to be discussing crystal grids. So this is fresh on my mind. Thank you for the question, Joseph. A crystal grid is, consider it a PowerPoint of energy. So a crystal in itself has its own energy, and we place crystals in particular areas. We use crystals within ritual and healing practices to instigate a change within the environment and the self, of course. A crystal grid changes the frequency of the space in which you are in. So when you're doing a crystal grid, you can use a crystal grid in a healing situation called i.e. the laying of stones, where a crystal therapist will place you on a flat surface and put crystals all around you on your body, and you will become part of the grid, or you will have the grid placed somewhere on your body. And also you can, as the knowing, willing participant, create your crystal grid inside your home space, your ritual space, your altar, even in the garden. If you ever have the opportunity to visit Byron Bay in Australia, they have the Crystal Castles, it's called. And it is I want to say it's quite a few hectares. It's very big, but the entire place is crystals. Every pathway is laned with rose quartz, for instance. You can sit in giant geodes. There's just crystals galore. It's called the Crystal Castle, and it's a huge attraction on the mid-north coast of New South Wales in Australia. But I digress. I just wanted to put that out there because it's a beautiful place and I try to go there any chance that I get. But in the same way that they've arranged that beautiful site to be just resplendent with crystals, you can do this in your home. And I'm just using the home as the example. You can put this anywhere in your spaces. But what it does is a configuration of crystals plugged into a crystal grid scenario changes the frequency of the space in which you are in. So let's say, for instance, you need some healing. There's some people in your in your home space, for instance, that might have a cold. So you would do a nice healing crystal grid, and then you would back that up with some, beautiful crystal elixirs, or you would have, healthy food, good juices, etc. Like you supplement that with something else. But that crystal grid for health, for vitality, for healing will stay there, and it will change the frequency so that when you are just simply in that space, you will start to receive that energy within the body, and it can help to instigate that healing process. Likewise, you can use a crystal grid in a myriad of different ways to enhance your magic, to create sacred space, to bring a lover, for many, many reasons. And so, crystal grids, absolutely beautiful. One thing that I would recommend, if you're interested in getting into crystal grids, is looking at the types of stones that are available to you in whichever area of the world you live in. I typically work with a generator crystal in the center of my crystal grids. However, the formation of the stones also have an impact on how the energy of that crystal grid will behave. So a sphere in the center, it will radiate energy out in a very different way. A generator will really project energy outwards in a particular way. Crystals with points on them can be faced inside or outside, inward or outward. And a crystal grid, in my very humble opinion, should always be capped off with a double terminated clear quartz stone. That's just how I do it. Now, whichever stone that I have in the center, I try to find a wand in the same variety, and I activate the crystals and the stones. I link them together, I activate the crystal grid, and then I let it do its thing. So it is a process. There are some books in regards to crystal grids. Hibiscus Moon has a crystal grid book. So too does Judy Hall. There are probably others that do, but for me, it's more about understanding what the stone does as opposed to how to place the stone. And if you really want to learn about crystals, there's some great books. One of the best is written by Melody, A Kaleidoscope of Crystals. And she has a massive compendium, a book that's like this big and that wide, and it's pictorial, and she puts in so much information. So she's one that I would recommend. Judy Hall is also very popular. I don't recommend Judy Hall over Melody. Melody's just my favorite for personal reasons. But I would highly recommend learning what stone works in what capacity, and then move into crystal grids, because it really does come down to knowing how to work with a stone, knowing what a stone does, the properties, how to cleanse it. These are all really important, and getting that stuff like nailed is going to help you to make a better, more fantastic crystal grid. Hope that was helpful, Joseph. Crystal Moon. Why is it doing that? Ooh, wait, I've lost my spot. It just keeps wandering on me. I need mods in my chat, yeah. I've lost my space, like full on. Sorry about this, guys. Oh, here we go. Crystal Moon. Is the page and cup in Hobart? Yes, it most certainly is. It's up near Harvey Norman somewhere, the page and cup. And the lady who owns it, her name is Lynn. She's Canadian and an absolute delight, honestly. So lovely. I think we have a troll or two. Do we have any mods? No, all my moderators are probably sleeping, unfortunately. There's one in New York, and there's one in Nashville, and they're tucked away asleep. Yeah, they're properly asleep. Free Spirit, can you talk more about how to bless and give intention to a scarf that I wrap around my head? Yes, I can. Scarves. Oh, I love them. My traditional Umbanda scarves, they're actually white, and the one that I have here in my possession here in Australia was gifted to me by my big sister. It was once her scarf. Now, the way to wash this is in moon water and or sun water, and you can wash it with herbs, particular herbs, for instance, herbs that will assist in psychic development and even protection in a way. So you want to mix those psychic development herbs with the protection herbs, because basically a headscarf guards your head, which is the main entry point for spirit. And we go through the senses, but it's all filtered through the crown. It comes from spirit inward to the body, and then it activates somehow in the body in one of the clairs. That's how I like to describe it anyway. And so we guard that headspace, making sure that no impure energies come into our vessel by ensuring that we wrap our head effectively. You can do this with a hat as well. Like, I love to wear headwear. Like, I'm inside and I'm wearing a hat. This is a pure wool felt hat. And it's great for me when I'm working out in the yard, but it's also great to keep my head warm, and it's great to keep my crown pretty safe. And so you can steep it in herbal baths, obviously nothing that's pigmented or coloured, so you wouldn't put turmeric in a water that you're going to wash a white headscarf in. That would just be counterintuitive. And so herbs, oils, moon water, and then leave it out to dry in the sun. These types of tools, like material tools, they're not something that you would throw in the washing machine. This is something that you hand wash. And as such, the way you treat it is it adds to the magic. It adds to the care. It also helps you to separate the magical from the mundane. So that's how I like to prepare my headscarves that I'm using within ritual. It's not to say that I never chuck them in the washing machine. Sometimes I do chuck them in the washing machine to give it a really, really good, proper clean. And then I go back to doing it all by hand. And it's just a way that I sort of reset the energy. My white head wrap that come from my sister never washes, ever. Ever. And I only use that on special occasions. Ooh. Champagne Sea, how can someone connect to their soul tribe if they incarnated from a past life as a witch? Oh, I would say the internet, actually. The internet is one of those ways that you can really meet some pretty fucking kindred spirits. Really beautiful people. Some of the best friends in my life were made through the internet. I've had my beautiful best friend, who's like a sister to me, Laura. We met like 5 years ago on YouTube. We just met on YouTube like that 5 years ago. Since then, she has been to Australia. She's been to my house. She knows my children. We talk daily. And she's such a huge part of my life. And she's coming back to Australia soon. And I'm going to visit her, hopefully, in America when I get over there soon. And, and I've been able to connect with such beautiful soul tribe in that way. I've also met some beautiful people, face to face in person here in Australia. But I find that the internet is one of those places that it really opens up the pathway to make meaningful connections if you're open to it as well. It's a place that can be pretty dodgy as well, but if you are doing what you love in a community that you absolutely adore, you are bound to meet like-minded people. So too, that will happen in person. I used to hold these beautiful open circle gatherings where tons of people would come and they would all engage. Some of the beautiful friends that I've made over the years have been a part of those circles where I've just, I've shone the light and they've come and we've met and now it's all a part of the history. One of my very, very best and probably oldest friends in Australia was met in that same way. And so you have to be brave enough to put yourself out there. And when you are, you find that niche, you find those people, you find that space in the communities that might not necessarily be so close to where you live. But it does open up pathways and it does give you opportunities beyond what you think is actually available to you. And for me, that my traveling pathways are about to open. As of next year, I'll be doing a lot more traveling. These past few years, I've had small children to raise, but I get to go out there and meet some people that I have been interacting with for more than 10 years online. People that I would consider to be dear, dear friends to me, that have helped me out in so many different ways, that have supported me in so many different ways. And that is how I meet my soul tribes. That's how I meet my peeps, is online and in person, by putting myself out there. And I'm a person that feels pretty confident putting themselves out there. Like, I put my name on things quite a bit. Like, I'll volunteer to do that. I'll hold an open circle. I'll do this. And that's all because I am powered by the need to have community. And if you are powered by the need to have community, then you will naturally put yourself in positions that will draw community to you. And then you get to sift through that community and find those people that really fan your flame and make your heart swell with, with that beautiful love and friendship and support. So that's how I do it. Liana, love, 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 Constantine. I'm with you there. Okay. Crystal Moon, how cool is this? My son just spilt some of my drink and it looks like Australia. That's really cool. Avalon, have you ever heard of a book called San Cipriano? Yes, I have. I have heard a book called San Cipriano. The Book of Saint Cyprian. Who introduced me to that book? Oh God, his name has just escaped me. He is a Brazilian living in Australia. He's also an author for Scarlet Imprint. Oh, his name's now going to bother me. I've got to find it in my chats. Here we go. Julio. Julio. I just had to think of that. Julio. Shannon just messaged me. She says Julio. Yeah, so he does a lot of Saint Cyprian type of work. And there are books dedicated to it. And my suggestion to you, if you're really interested in material like that, is to check out places like Three Hands Press and Scarlet Imprint. I'm not sure about Troy Books. I don't really think that they specialize in that. But yeah, yes. Hi, Avalon. Would you say that magic has a smell or scent? And if so, how do you describe it? Oh, not so much a smell or a scent, but definitely an energetic imprint. Like, I can walk into ritual space, right? And let me put it this way. Up north, weather used to be a huge challenge because you have these torrential rains, you have the wet season and cyclonic winds, and that can sometimes drive your rituals to be indoor rituals. So we up north had a really great mix of outdoor rituals and indoor rituals. So we kept it a really good balance that way. We would only do indoor ritual if the weather was completely terrible and we couldn't do what we wanted to do outside. So what would happen is we would be in somebody's house, just one of the coven members' houses, and like magic would be made. You would open up sacred space, move furniture around, create the circles, and smudge and cleanse and raise energy and call corners and the whole thing. And then you would close it all down. Days would go by. I might pop over to one of my coven sisters, to have a cup of tea, just a spontaneous thing. And you walk into the space and there's an energetic imprint. And it's not because I know, you can actually feel it. It just feels magical. It just feels, and it's also very energizing. When you hold ritual in a space over and over again, for instance, that space will always hold the memory of those rituals. There might be 100 years gone by, but ritual magic is so intense. It has such an intense energy that it will just sit in that place, and time and weather and wind will wither away the entire landscape, but the energy of magic will always remain. And you can tell that particularly in areas that revere sacred rocks. So Stonehenge is one such place where they have marked out a ritual site. Now, Stonehenge is reputed to be, so many different things. So no one really knows exactly what Stonehenge is and what it was used for. We do know that it was used for a ritual, good or bad, it was used for a ritual. And that energy remains there. If you go walking through the ruins of the English countryside, for instance, Cornish landscapes and that kind of thing, then you're going to find the remains of sacred sites, and you walk into these spaces and you can feel the magic because it's left over there from the rituals that existed in that area, thousands of years ago. So yeah, I think it's there. Magic is a very, very powerful thing. It doesn't just go away. It doesn't just evaporate. It's not alcohol. It's magic. And an experienced energy worker can tell you when and where magic was used. If you can't yourself feel it, an experienced energy worker can actually say, oh, there was magic here. Oh, this energy is like, it's good. A witch who practices ritual over and over and over and over again knows what it feels like to be in ritual space, knows what it feels like to be out of ritual space, and the body can just naturally sense magic and those that ritual energy, no matter where you go, because you've trained your body to be able to detect that kind of thing. It's something that you build up over time. Hmm. How do I do this? Hold on. I'm just doing a bit of there we go. That's better. Yes, I will connect with him. Thanks, and check those books out for sure. Wonderful. Lee Morgan, he's got a new one coming out at the moment. Actually, I'll send you over to Rune Soup. I'll send you over to Gordon's neck of the woods. Gordon interviewed Lee. As it turns out, like I met Lee a couple of weeks ago over at Gordon's, and I didn't know that Lee actually lived in Tasmania, but he does. He's not actually that far away from us, so he's still sort of like part of the Huon Valley. We have a lot of like serious like witches down here and magicians and chaos magicians, I should say, because Gordon doesn't refer to himself as a witch, but he's a magician. Connect with that level with my witchiness being from Africa. That's amazing. Okay, who else have I got here? Liana. Yes, I magically, it was so easy to connect with when I moved from the city. Indeed, Liana. It really does open up the pathways to connect to nature when you can be more in nature every single day. Like you feel it when you camp as well, right? You go camping out in the bush, or out in the forest, and you feel different. Solaria, if you could have any pet, real, imaginary, mythological, Ari, extinct, what would it be and why? This is a fun question, isn't it? I'm not sure. I'm actually not sure. I don't. I think the rainbow serpent would be right up there for me, but I don't work with animals in that same capacity. Like I have a puppy and I have chickens and there's wild wallabies around. I much like to work with the animals that are already around me. But if I had to choose a mythological, probably a dragon. Mythological, it'd be a dragon. Bit of a tight, bit of a close choice between the dragon and the unicorn. But I find the dragon much more in keeping with my personality, and a unicorn to be very pure, very virtuous. Yes, I don't have a good, really, really good answer for that one. Free Spirit. I want to thank you very much, Avalon, for taking the time for doing this live stream for us. Oh, thank you, Free Spirit. Well, it's the least I could do. I missed out on my witchy vlog. And so I've got to edit this next video. So we're coming up to almost an hour. Can you believe it? So we're 58 minutes. So if anyone has any more questions, let me know, because I've got a couple of minutes in which I can. Oh, there we go. Such great chats, guys. Jade Star, thanks. When do you set an intention? When you set an intention, do you go for the end goal, or do you set intentions leading up to that goal? Little like little goals at a time leading to that larger goal. That's really interesting that you put it that way, Jade, because in sigil magic, the beautiful Gordon has come up with a term called shoaling, and that's basically a term derived from his passion of water and diving. But basically, shoaling is the casting out of multiple sigils, all that lead breadcrumbs towards each other. And I've explained that terribly. If you'd like to know about his sigil method, I highly recommend you read his book, The Chaos Protocols, because it has it in there. But that is something that he uses there. When it comes to intention setting, look, I like to set the intention. The intention for me is something that I set in an almost mundane fashion. I don't place too much emphasis on the intention setting. Like, yes, I do, but when I am working towards creating change in the form of a spell, a weaving, a casting of magic, then what I put into that is totally different, and it's a one-off for me, unless, of course, I know that it's big energy that I'm moving, and therefore I need to work on that energy for a lunar cycle, or I need to work on that energy for 9 days, in which case I hold that one need, that one goal in my mind, and I chip away at it. But I don't have any stepping stones. I'm a go big or go home type of person, which is what leads me into the lifestyle that I have now. And I really, really am happy in my life. Like, I'm completely out of debt. I have absolutely no debt whatsoever. I run a really good business. I live in a dream spot. My dream of living off grid in a beautiful property has come to life. Like, my children are happy, healthy. I've got great relations. Like, I have a good life, and that's because I go for what I want. And so I don't bother placing out those little stepping stones, not for most occasions, because when I need something and I want something, the Taurus in me just has to have it. It just has to. And so I'll move hell and high water to make something happen magically with a one goal, one intention, one thought, single-minded pursuit. That's just my process. That's my style. Everybody is different. One more question. That's all right, Champagne. That's what I'm here. It's a Q&A. What does a hare/rabbit mean when it appears as a messenger? I would honestly look more into a totem book, because when it comes to animal attributes, that's not my forte at all. I know that the hare is associated to spring. It's also associated to breeding. There is an element of productivity in a very different way to that of an ant or a bee. And so I would break it down in that capacity and determine what type of energy. Like, a hare has a spring in its step. And so for me, it represents a different, very high type of energy. But beyond that, that's as far as I could tell you. But there are great books out there. There's Animal Speak, I think that's what it's called. Ted Andrews is the author of that one, and it's pretty much just like a little collection of animals and the attributes and associations that they might have. So I just wanted to pause here for a second. I've been on here for an hour now, and I wanted to say if you've enjoyed this time that I've spent with you, please do thumbs up this live stream. Show your appreciation for the time that I've spent here answering your questions in this way. It's just a really nice way of giving back to me and making me feel really appreciated. So if you wouldn't mind just going over and thumbsing it up, especially if I've taken the time to perhaps answer one of your questions or answer somebody else's questions, which you may have had lingering in the back of your mind. So it would be a really nice way to, yeah, just to give me a little thank you. One question. What else? Oh, there's just so many beautiful comments. Art and tarot. What happened? What happened? Fascinating how they make a nest, the babies. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Oh, I might have skipped over something here. Hasten cases? I hope I've pronounced that okay. Is it okay to use images of mazes for crystal grids? Images of mazes. That's actually getting more into labyrinth work. So you'll have to pick your direction. Are you going for a labyrinth? Are you doing mind labyrinth walk? Are you trying to walk the labyrinth mentally or physically? Or are you doing a crystal grid? The two are very different things. You can connect the two, not very easy actually, at least not to my knowledge. I wouldn't put those two things together. That's my own thing. If you feel comfortable doing it and you know a good way of doing that, then by all means go for it. But crystals direct energy, they amplify energy. A maze confuses the energy that is being manipulated or extracted or emitted, for instance. Emitted is the best word to use there. So a maze is designed to capture concentration and have you walk the path of confusion until you reach the path of clarity. A crystal grid is much more laser focused than that. So by putting the two together, you may actually confuse the energy, in which case your crystal grid might not amplify as well as it should or could. Liana? As a visitor from NZ, I burst into tears at Stonehenge regardless of authentic speculation. The energy was insane. Same in Cornwall. My skin was electric. Indeed. It's good stuff over there. It's really good stuff. Oh, thank you, Solaria. Thank you. You're so beautiful. All right. If there are no more questions for me, then I'm going to call it a day. I have but a few moments. I've got about half an hour in which to edit yesterday's video, so it goes up as today's vlog, and I've got to pick up my Kiddlywinks as well. Lady Grey, can you talk about shadow work? I can and I can't. I'm of the opinion that shadow work is something that people should definitely know about. And in order to get to the subject of shadow work, I highly recommend going the pathway of Jungian spiritual psychology. However, there are far too many unqualified people talking about shadow work. There are people that have read all the books and that are talking about shadow work, and that still to me isn't good enough. So when it comes to shadow work, I highly recommend speaking to people who are qualified Jungian spiritual psychologists that can really break it down and really present it in a much more accessible format. But to briefly talk about it, under the banner of I am not an expert, I would say that shadow is something that is innately a spiritual disease within the body. And I say disease very carefully, and I don't mean this obtusely, of course. But what it does is it sits as a block. It sits as a gloomy cloud, as a blockage in the body, and it can actually deter you from thriving. It can deter you from really accessing beautiful experiences in your life or expressing yourself freely and completely and living an authentic life. And shadow is insidious. Many of us don't even know half of the shadows that we have, which is why learning about shadows from, very particular and specialized sources is a very, very good idea, and why people are qualified Jungian spiritual psychologists that do good amounts of study in order to reach that point where they can really comment and really talk about it. If you are interested in working with the concept of shadow work and coupling that up with tarot, then Benabel Wen has a really, really great course that comes with a thick as guidebook. She gave that to me as a present some time ago, and I love the damn thing. Like, it's a great, great, great course. And it's not that it's not that it heals you externally, it heals you from within. So you do the work, you follow the coursework in this guidebook, you use the tarot, and you get to your conclusions. And by the end of it, you will have successfully done some shadow work. But shadow work is something that is time consuming. It is tedious. It can actually connect you to shamanism in the way of like soul wounds and ancestral baggage and old contracts. Like, the two can actually connect one to the other, which is why it is such a complex kind of ailment or disease, if you will, because there is more to it than what is commonly most often referred to. And everyone loves to talk about shadow work. Everyone loves to talk about Jung. But the fact of the matter is, Jung has a huge body of work. His colleagues who have written in contribution to his work also have huge bodies of work. So by the time you have consumed the hundreds of books that are out there and looked at it from a psychological model, then that takes time to get there. So I don't care about doing that. Like, that's not something that I'm interested in doing. So I'm going to go and see someone about it. But for the most part, I can perform maintenance on my shadow work. I know my shadow, some of them, not all of them, but I can perform maintenance work. And that's what I use Bwen's tarot course book for, is to perform maintenance on me. And beyond that, I'd recommend Kellyanne Maddox, actually, who is a qualified Jungian spiritual psychologist and tarot teacher and or reader, and just a professional with a kick-ass ethical standpoint. So I would recommend someone like that for those who are really, really interested in getting to the nitty-gritty of shadow work. Lots of people advertise that they do shadow work readings and things like that. I've even done, I used to have a shadow work reading in my Etsy store, and as soon as I put it up, I pretty much took it down. It didn't feel right for it to be there. While I knew and understood how it was that I was working with my shadows at the time, I didn't feel very qualified to be helping somebody else do that. It's a huge responsibility. And when you start to poke other people's shadows, you can create real drama in their lives. Like, you can actually create like tower moments. And that's not something that I'm prepared to own for somebody else, if that makes sense. So research and find credible sources. That's what I could tell you. Oh, this is moving really super duper fast. Ooh. Have I used aloe vera in spells? Yes, I've also used it on sunburns. Aloe vera is lovely. Candle magic, aloe vera. Just a little bit. Just to soothe the burn. Really, aloe vera is great for soothing the burn. So, if you're wanting to heal from someone who burnt you, like in that way, aloe vera, great. That's a great one. What books would you recommend to build psychic senses? Ooh, what books indeed. It's hard to say. Look, off the top of my head, I can't think of a single specific book. For me, it's all about activities. like repetitive activities, ritual, daily practice, journaling, these types of things, working with divination tools, they're the things that I think have a bigger impact than just reading about, your psychic senses. But if you want to read up on your clairs, that would be, really interesting. If you want to read up on energy, like Hands of Light is a book that I used to have when I was really into Reiki, because I am a Reiki practitioner, just by the way. I just haven't bothered with it like over the years. Like I did my Reiki courses when I was in the Northern Territory, and then I was all gung-ho about Reiki, and then I was just like, actually no, Reiki's not for me. um That's about it. All right then, folks. Well, I've got to skedaddle now. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Thank you so much for throwing me out some of those really good, yummy questions. I hope that you found my answers suitable and helpful in some way. I would like to do something like this again in future. It's trying to pin down a time these days is pretty tricky for me, but I will try my absolute best to make sure that I get another one done soon, because it's much better doing a Q&A live than it is doing a Q&A pre-recorded. It's just more dynamic, and I think you get to interact in the moment. So with all of that said, I will be speaking to you all very, very soon. Check out tomorrow's vlog, which will hopefully be the Wishing Well, which is the little witchy new age store here in Hobart, and a little interview with the lovely Molly and just the beautiful staff there. So there we have it, beautiful souls. Thanks so much again for hanging out. Don't forget to thumbs up this live stream. It would mean the world to me if you could just take the time to just go beep. That'd be great. Much love, many blessings. Bye.